Interesting times we're living in, guys. Interesting times. Young Thug has been locked up for almost 2.5 years now. And Free Jeffrey, drop a little Free Jeffrey in the comments. But what's interesting is Thug has managed to gain access to Twitter while behind bars. He's been tweeting for months now. In September, he told us that the cheetah's free. Drop a comment if you know who the cheetah is. And recently, Thug just tweeted out tagging Drake, Future, and Metro Boomin saying, "We're all brothers. Music ain't the same without us collaborating." And what's interesting for all you Drake fans out there is that Future actually retweeted this post. Could this be the reunion of the OVO and Pluto? We know that Drake never really wanted beef with Future. People think their issue started over a female by the name of Tokyo. Future started by dissing Drake, saying, "You're my #1 fan." Drake responded by saying, "I could never be no one's #1 fan. The first #1 you had, I put it in your hand. I'm out in Tokyo because I'm big in Japan." Then Future and Metro Boomin assembled the hip-hop Avengers on both of their albums. They featured multiple rappers like A$AP Rocky, Kendrick, Rick Ross, who all had issues with Drake and dissed Drake on their album. And Drake clapped back on Family Matters, saying, "2 albums dissing, I just did the Kim to it, I skimmed through it." But he also walked back his issues with Future, saying, "Pluto's issues made me sick to my stomach, we ain't never really been through it. Metro Boomin's an effing lame, so I know he had to be an influence." And honestly, out of all the rappers and R&B singers that Drake has been beefing with over the last couple of months, I gotta say, Rick Ross and Future were definitely the 2 that I was most upset about, just because with them beefing, the world will be deprived of many classic collaborations in the future. And Future himself just put out a full-length project with no features, showing Drake that he doesn't need him for those #1 hits. Meanwhile, on Drake's end, we haven't got a full-length project from him yet, but we have got a ton of mirror selfies with him doing his duck face, rocking a Hello Kitty phone case, some Hello Kitty nail polish, and some pigtails. And this is exactly how a man approaching 40 years old should be dressing and looking. And if you're looking for new Drake music, then you're definitely in luck, because ever since Kendrick called him a colonizer on his Not Like Us record, Drake has done a record with every culture, every region, and every demographic imaginable. Most recently, he released a record with the Mexican singer Chino Pacas and the Mexican band Fuerza Regida. I did my best to pronounce those names correctly, so drop a like for the effort. The song is called Moto Capone. Drake is singing fully in Spanish. It sounds like he's trying to audition for a mariachi band, but it's not half bad. We also saw him collaborating with pop stars like Camila Cabello. He ran back to Atlanta for a few dollars by linking up with 21 Savage, Young Thug, Lotto, and Playboi Carti, but Carti mysteriously removed his vocals off the Drake record. We also saw Drake returning to his hometown of Toronto by giving us the Toronto anthem, Wagwan Delilah, which sounded like Weird Al Yankovic if he was raised in Brampton. And he also took Kendrick's advice of sticking to the melodies and stop acting tough by taking Party Next Door out of the OVO sweatshop and announcing that they have a new collaboration album on the way. And why I bring all this up is because it leads me to a more interesting point. See, Drake has given us an absurd amount of music ever since this beef with Kendrick Lamar ended. We've got R&B music, pop music, parody music, trap music, everything basically. But let me ask you a really tough question. Can you name me one unanimous hit record from Drake from 2024? I'm not trying to hate on Drake here, I promise. This is not a Drake hate video. In fact, I'm very excited for new Drake music, but this is a very concerning time in Drake's career, and if you're a Drake fan in general. A lot of people are comparing Drake's career now to where Ja Rule's career was after he lost his beef with 50 Cent. If you guys don't remember, before his beef with 50 Cent, Ja Rule was the #1 go-to guy for hits in hip-hop. Just like Drake, he also made these rap, pop, and R&B infused hits that were dominating the charts in the early 2000s. But after his beef with 50 Cent, Ja Rule could not catch a hit to save his life. And that wasn't necessarily due to the dip in quality of his music. It was due to the assassination of his character that 50 Cent and Eminem performed on him, and the poor public perception that he received after that beef. And if you look at Drake's chart performance in 2024, he's in a very similar predicament. Again, he hasn't caught a real hit in 2024. His highest charting song was Family Matters. His 7-minute diss song Against the Industry did chart at #7 on the Billboard charts. However, it quickly got overshadowed by Kendrick Lamar's diss records like Euphoria and Not Like Us, which charted at #3 and #1 respectively. And ever since Kendrick obliterated him in this beef, Drake has dropped over 12 records, with all of them failing to hit the top 20 of the Billboard charts. His highest charting record since the beef is It's Up with 21 Savage and Young Thug, and that only peaked at #28. And considering this was potentially the biggest beef in mainstream hip-hop of all time, it's also pretty insane that Drake's highest charting diss track was only peaking at number 7. For any normal artist, this would seem like a great achievement, but this is Drake we're talking about, right? Like, this is the same guy that almost beat Michael Jackson or tied his record for the most #1 Billboard hits of all time. This is the highest selling hip-hop artist of all time. This is the guy who just a year before, in 2023, broke the record for most Billboard charting songs in a single year, with over 40 songs hitting the charts less than 365 days ago. Now he puts out 12 records and not one of them can crack the top 20. It's very strange, and it gets a little stranger when you take a deeper dive into the stats of 2024. See, Drake is still the rapper with the most streams this year. Even with Kendrick Lamar dropping multiple nukes on his head, even with Not Like Us being the fastest streamed hip-hop record of all time, even with Kendrick having 2 #1 Billboard charting hits in 2024, Drake still has 13 billion streams in 2024, and Kendrick Lamar only has 7.3 billion. So how is it with Drake dropping multiple record after record in 2024, all of them flopping on the charts for his standards? How is he still #1? How is he still the most streamed artist of this year? Well, you could say, oh, Drake drops a lot of records, so they all add up, and that's why he has so many streams. But take a look at Future. Future has a #1 record this year. Future has 3 #1 albums this year, and he's still way below Drake on this list, getting almost half of the amount of streams that Drake has this year with only 7.2 billion. Eminem also dropped an album this year. He's also only gotten 7.2 billion streams this year. Metro Boomin's albums from the last year and a half are also outselling all of Drake's albums from the last year and a half, but he also only has half the streams this year that Drake has. So where are all these mysterious streams coming from, and did Drake really fall off, or is this all a fake narrative? Well, it gets a little more interesting when you dig deeper into the chart stats, and shout out to Hip Hop All Day for supplying all these stats. If you don't believe me that these new Drake songs aren't performing the way they should, or how his old music was performing, then take a look at the most streamed rap songs on this week's Spotify chart. You'll see Travis Scott's Fiend at #1 with 19 million streams this week. You'll see Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us record at #4 with 14.9 million streams this week. Tyler, the Creator's 2017 record, See You Again, is even higher than Not Like Us at #15. Eminem's 2004 record, Mockingbird, is outstreaming every Drake record this week on the charts. It's the 5th most streamed record this week. Travis Scott also has a throwback song with Goosebumps in the top 10 of the most streamed songs this week in 2024 on Spotify, as his 2016 record Goosebumps racked up 11.6 million streams this week. Even the new KSI song Thick of It is outstreaming every Drake record this week on Spotify. And that's a classic. I'm going to do a full breakdown of that record. Impeccable record. But yeah, as you could see, it's not just the overall charts, it's even on the hip-hop charts. Drake does not have one song in the top 20 of the most streamed rap songs on Spotify this week. And keep in mind, again, he's released over 12 records since this beef has ended. So how is he the most streamed rapper of the year if he doesn't even have a song in the top 20 of the most streamed rap songs on Spotify this week? Well, if we look at the highest selling rap albums of the year, we could see that Drake's 2023 release For All the Dogs is the second highest selling album of the hip hop genre in 2024. However, you can't help but go back to earlier Drake records and think, if For All the Dogs was on the same quality as a Take Care, a Nothing Was the Same, or even a Scorpion, it would easily be the highest selling rap album of the year, easily surpassing 1.2 million sales in 1 year. And I mean, if you look even deeper on the charts, you'll see that his album from 2011, Take Care, sold half of what For All the Dogs has sold in 2024, 15 years after its release. And that's the root of this problem, right? Drake is the most streamed artist of the year because he's given us so much music. But over the last few years, he's massively shifted to a more quantity over quality approach, and the numbers speak for themselves. For All the Dogs is his lowest selling solo album, and the longevity of his higher quality records, like Take Care, are massively outperforming most albums that were released in 2024. To me, this shows that people don't miss the old Kanye, they miss the old Drake. We're latching on to the memories that we had with his prior music, and it's resonating a lot more than anything he's put out this year alone. This becomes more apparent when you look at the Drake songs that are getting the most streams on Spotify on a daily basis today in 2024. His most streamed record today was his 2016 release, One Dance. His second most streamed song is his 2013 collaboration with Lil Wayne and Future called Love Me. Then you have another Future collaboration at #3 with Wait For You. Then you got God's Plan, Passion Fruit, a bunch of records that were released at least 3 to 4 years ago. You have to go all the way down to number 7 to find a Drake song that was released in 2024 that's getting the most streams on a daily basis. If you look at the daily Apple Music charts, it's the same thing. That same song, Circadian Rhythm, is his 8th most streamed record on Apple Music today. And all his other songs on that chart were either released all the way back in 2009, all the way up to 2022. Funny enough, his collaboration in 2012 with Kendrick Lamar, Poetic Justice, is still on the Apple Music charts 12 years later in 2024 at number 133. That record with Kendrick is charting higher than any record Drake put out in 2024. That's an insane statistic. And if you didn't believe me that For All the Dogs did not perform nearly half as well as any other Drake album, then look no further at the amount of daily streams that album is getting today. His 2016 and 2021 albums, Views and Certified Lover Boy, are both getting almost as much streams on a daily basis as his 2023 release For All the Dogs. And you could say, oh, but no one's really listening to new 2023 rap albums today. But then look at Travis Scott's statistics and you'll see that Utopia, his 2023 release, is massively outperforming For All the Dogs, as it's getting more than double the amount of daily streams today than For All the Dogs is. You could also see that Kendrick Lamar's 2017 album, Damn, is outstreaming every Drake album on Spotify on a daily basis in 2024. And that's crazy to put into perspective. Drake released For All the Dogs less than 365 days ago, yet it's only getting 3.5 million streams per day, while Damn, which was released all the way back in 2017, is getting 4.5 million streams on a daily basis. Another interesting stat is that Drake's collaboration with Rick Ross, Money in the Grave, which was released back in 2019, just hit 1 billion streams on Spotify. Now, this is Rick Ross's first song to reach 1 billion streams on Spotify, and it has more streams than every other song that Rick Ross has released combined since they put out Money in the Grave. Shows you that Drake bar about putting number ones in your hand probably applied much more to Rick Ross than it did to Future. But I say all this to say, with all these statistics that Drake is breaking, with him being the number 1 most streamed rapper of 2024, in the year that he's been flopping the most since he's been active back in 2009, with Drake not being on the Billboard charts for the first time in over 500 weeks, it shows that Drake is in a very weird position. While his back catalog is still performing amazingly, while all those old hits are still resonating, ever since this beef with Kendrick, ever since Drake released song after song, he hasn't been able to obtain a single hit in 2024. And while it's impressive to think that even with no hits, he's still outstreaming every other rapper in the industry, it's also concerning for his career. His horrible streaming numbers from every record he's released this year make it very concerning when you question where the future of Drake's career is going to go. I mean, it's not like he hasn't tried to put out a hit. He's given us the classic Drake formulaic records. He's teamed up with other Atlanta rappers. He's given us pop records. He's given us dance records. He's given us basically everything but a collaboration with Future in 2024. And yeah, his old albums are still seeing success. They're still being streamed a lot, but it's not even about the beef with Kendrick. Obviously, that's played a huge impact in how Drake songs have been performing in the last few months. However, even if you go back to 2023, both him and Travis Scott released albums that year, and Travis Scott's has been massively outperforming Drake's. That never would have happened back in 2018, even though Travis released his biggest album of all time with Astroworld. It still didn't hold a candle to Drake's Scorpion. And Drake's albums from 2016 to 2018 had massive hits, his biggest hits ever, like God's Plan, Nice for What, One Dance, Controlla, all these massive records. Even with all those albums being the huge successes that they were, Kendrick Lamar's Damn is still outperforming every Drake album in 2024. So it shows you that a shift is happening, and it's been happening for a while. Drake's last biggest hits were with Yeet and Sexy Red. He hasn't had a solo number 1 hit in ages. And I don't say this as a Drake hater. I say this as someone who loved a lot of the early Drake hits. I say this as someone who watched him come up after Lil Wayne, watched him carry that torch. And I was very excited back in 2009 when Best I Ever Had hit number 2 on the Billboard charts. That was the highest charting hip-hop record at the time by a Canadian artist. As a Canadian myself, I was like, that was great. And then he went on to give us a monstrous run. Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, If You're Reading This Is Too Late. Those are all classics of the 2010s. As much as I'm not a fan of a lot of the new Drake music, you can't deny that beyond just being a hitmaker in the 2010s, he was also giving us a lot of amazing hits. And it's weird that today, songs like No Face, songs like It's Up, none of these records had any sort of real longevity. Yeah, you could say they were initially released on Instagram, but these records were designed to be hits. These sound like classic, formulaic Drake hit records. And they've been on streaming platforms for months now. So he's definitely given them the opportunity to be able to, in the long run, have them stream more and more each day. And the fact that they're not either shows you that people are truly tired of the formula that Drake has been using over the past few years. Maybe they're tired of Drake in general, or maybe Kendrick performed such a brutal character assassination on Drake that people just can't look at his music the same as they did before this beef ever happened. Like, if Drake put out It's Up or No Face in 2023 before this beef with Kendrick, how would those records perform? Or an even better question than that, Drake has given us over 12 records this year. Nothing Was the Same has a track list of 12 songs. If Drake put out 12 records in 2024 that were on the same caliber as those 12 records off Nothing Was the Same, would he still be flopping on the charts as bad as he is? I keep saying the only way Drake can make a real comeback is by giving us another Nothing Was the Same type of project where there's minimal features. Drake is putting his best efforts into his rapping performances like he did on a Pound Cake or a Tuscan Leather. There's amazing R&B performances. There's an amazing fusion between R&B and hip hop. There's great production from 40. And Drake actually gets back in his bag of being vulnerable and sharing some detail on his life instead of giving us this same bland subject matter about money, beefing, women, mob ties, and more. And I think that's what truly people are really just tired of. Like, on all these new records, Drake is just talking about how people tried to kill him down. He's still here. He's still number one. Like, no one wants to hear that. It just sounds delusional. It sounds out of touch. He's not giving us a relatable message here, or even a message that's relatable to his current situation, because, I mean, you lost. You got to accept it. But hey, who knows? Maybe we'll get some new tracks with him in future now. That would be great to see. But it's also like, how do you explain to the public what went down in the last year if you guys are now linking up again? Like, what's Future going to say? Yeah, I did 2 whole albums where I assembled all of your enemies. We all dissed you on these 2 albums. We put out #1 records where we were saying F the big 3. Future himself was the catalyst for this entire beef to start off. So it's like, how does he walk that back now? How does he explain why he was dissing Drake 6 months ago, but now he's open to collaborating with him again? I do think Drake put it perfectly when he said Metro Boomin had to be an influence in this whole thing. Obviously, they have a long back and forth that has stemmed from a couple years ago. And I think a lot of these issues derive from Metro Boomin, not specifically Future. He kind of just got caught up in the mix. And that's why you don't see Metro Boomin retweeting that Young Thug tweet that says they should all make music together again. But let me know in the comments, do you guys want new Drake and Future music? Do you want Drake to kind of branch off on his own and say, you know, F all these guys that have been dissing me for the last few months. I'm going to show you that I could kind of do it on my own and get back to what people loved me for back in the day, back what I was rapping about on Take Care, the album that's still getting streamed more than any of my other albums except for the one I released last year. Do you want Future to go back to linking up with Drake for some hits? Do you think he even really needs Drake for hits? I think Drake should get back in the booth with J. Cole before he links up with Future again. I mean, if you guys heard that new J. Cole record, he's sadder than anyone that this beef ever even happened. And I have a whole video breaking that down because I do think that he looked at it from a mature perspective in terms of what it truly means to be great. Does it mean that his greatness or his legacy is tainted because he chose to eliminate himself from this battle? Or was he more mature for thinking of the repercussions of potentially losing one of his peers as a friend? Let me know in the comments, did Drake being the #1 most streamed artist of 2024 mean that he's still on top? Or is he falling off because none of his 2024 records have been able to perform nearly as well as his past records? And do you want to see another Future collaboration with Drake? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
There's a lot of little nuggets in both of their disses that if it wasn't for these breakdowns, and salute to, you know, guys like this, Rapaholics, because I think they directly get it.